This is the Redbird Report with Sports Director Wiese and Bob Ramsey. Powered by Rawlings and the Rawlings Experience on the Big 550 KTRS.
Well, welcome into the debut edition of the Redbird Report on the Big 550 KTRS and all of our KTRS digital platforms. It's powered by Rawlings. Wiese, Bob Ramsey with you as we are actually counting it down here. Next week, spring training gets underway, and Rammer, by golly, I think I saw like a day or two ago, we're 50 days away from the start of the Major League Baseball season. That's never a bad thing that we're getting that close. Spring and then summer, and then we've got 6 months of baseball, man. I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's funny this early, although talking to some folks in Jupiter yesterday, it's in the low 80s every day. It feels more like baseball there than it does in St. Louis. Yeah, we're barely over a couple of weeks away from spring training games. So I think the first game's like the 22nd of February. And so once the games start going, right now guys are playing catch, getting swings in the cage. That's fine. Did you really learn anything? No. And but when the games start, that's when it really gets exciting for me anyway.
Well, Rammer, I feel like we're still not quite out of this off season yet, even though spring training is so close, and you can actually start to feel the nice weather down there in Florida, especially with the news now over the last couple of days. And it's sort of like a will they or won't they song and dance with Nolan Arenado. Here we are on, February the 6th. Nolan's still a Cardinal, but you hear the rumblings that maybe there are talks going on with the Boston Red Sox. I figured we'd start this show today with just scenarios, and I think off the record we've talked a lot about this, but just what this ball club looks like with Arenado, without Arenado. And I don't even know if there is a scenario where we're sitting there in July and Nolan is still on this team. I think that's probably highly unlikely, but the scenario that he actually shows up to spring training, I guess that's getting more and more likely by the day.
Until he's traded, he's not. So there's two ways to look at it when you try and make your projections with him or without him. Mozeliak has said for months that it is his number one goal to move Arenado. We'll see if he gets it done. If he doesn't, I won't call it a failure. It would be a failure by his standards. Obviously, he was the one that said what he was going to do. You're not a better team without Arenado, though. But that doesn't mean you're not going to be okay without him. He is truly a great player, in particular on the defensive side. So, I think every time you look at a projection, and I know we're going to get into it today, position players and that sort of thing, for now, you have to look at with Nolan, without Nolan. I don't think there's any other way to do it.
And with him, you said it, they are a better team. With him, he's your middle of the order bat. I don't know if we want to guess the lineup today, but he's your third or fourth hitter.
I got him fifth. Day. I like him fifth.
Okay.
But what you do today doesn't mean it's how it would look in April or May or June or July for the trade deadline, which goes back to what you're saying between now and July for Nolan Arenado. I think, we look at projections, but you also have to, I still really believe in meritocracy. And I know as we go through players and positions and that sort of thing, I think it's really important that players earn their spot. And I think as we get into this, you'll see there's a couple of spots where I think it's reasonable for us. I don't want to put you in this, I will hold the Cardinals' feet to the fire. Are you playing contracts or are you playing the players who earn it? And I think that is something that it's up to us and fans, again, to put the Cardinals' feet to the fire on that. Are you really going for a youth movement, or are you still going to play politics and player contracts? And I think that's important to put to look at the Cardinals front office through that lens every single day.
And obviously that becomes really important when we talk about life without Arenado in that universe where he is traded. How do you organize? Because it's a domino effect. It's not just third base. It impacts almost all of the infield other than shortstop, and it impacts a lot of the outfield as well if Arenado's out here. But for a moment, let's play this game where he's on the team, Rammer.
Okay.
I don't know about you. I get a sense Nolan's got one more big year in him. Is it this year? Well, if he has one more big year, odds favor whatever year he's the youngest. So that would be 2025. So I think he's got one more, and I don't know exactly what that looks like. Can he stay healthy? I mean, he's been banged up a little bit the last couple of years, and you play third base, you're going to get hurt more than if you play first base or DH or right field. That's just part of the game. That's a high-impact defensive position. But perfect world, if Nolan's healthy, man, I think he's probably pretty motivated with a lot of this chatter going on. And I'd love to see what that looks like for a Cardinals team that would be looking for some sort of life and try to get their fan base energized. If Nolan's here, I see a scenario where he's pretty good.
Let me ask you this. Was he pretty good last year?
I think he was just okay.
I don't know if he'll be better than he was last year. I think he was pretty good. His defense, has it slipped a little? He may not be the best guy in the game like he was defensively. I think anybody that says he wasn't the best for a few years I don't know what they're looking at. Offensively, he slipped a little bit. Can he match his numbers? Can he improve on them a little bit? I don't know. I think he's, 20 to 25 home run kind of guy still. That remains to be seen. But as you try to project and put things together, that's where I look at him. I don't look at him as the, 300 hitter with 35 bomb Colorado guy. Mm-hmm. But I think he's a guy that if he hit behind a left-handed hitter who's hitting cleanup and he's hitting fifth, I think that would be that. I think that would be reasonable to project positive productivity in that spot.
And I can kind of buy into your logic of hitting him fifth, even with a lesser known lineup, because he's not an on-base guy. He's a run-producing guy. And for me, when I say Nolan could have one more big year in him, let me specify, this isn't concerning defense, because the defense will steadily decline. But you said it, he's still maybe the best in the sport if we stack up all those numbers together. I think Nolan, when I say big year, I say 30 home runs, 100 RBI. I think he's got one more of those kind of years left in him. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's here in 2025. And in fact, I'll say I'll bank on it being 2025, whether it's in a Cardinals uniform, a Red Sox uniform, or somewhere else. I think Nolan's got a big 2025 coming.
I hope you're right. I don't know that I would bet that. I might bet numbers just a little bit less. But that's not being negative. I just think, age and what we've seen in the decline. But I would hope you're right.
Well, let's talk about that scenario, Rammer, where Nolan is gone. And I want to pair it with the team that we're hearing about this week in the Boston Red Sox. And we've talked a lot about this, that at least off the air and in just conversations around the radio station, that if you trade Nolan, it's probably for salary relief and not much else. But if there were to be a team that I would look at and say, Boston's got a lot of pieces that I personally would love to have access to as a Cardinal fan. Boston's got, and I wouldn't say their farm system is overly rich. I don't love the pitching in their farm system, but I love their position players on the big league roster, and I love their position players that are still waiting to come up through the minor league system. They've got guys, and obviously Chaim Bloom knows that system very well. If Boston's my trade partner, I'm expecting to bring something back in return that Boston's ready to move on from. Wishful thinking on my part, somebody like a Tristan Cassis, I don't think that's real world. I'd love to see it, because obviously if Boston acquires Arenado, he's playing third. Devers moves to first. Is Cassis your DH? What are they doing there? Maybe he's part of a package where he could come to St. Louis. But I'd be really excited. They've got a lot of bats in that organization that I'd love to see the Cardinals kick the tires on.
Well, Chaim Bloom would know better than really anybody who's there, who's good, and who he wants.
Right.
I don't think the Cardinals will get that choice. I think the Red Sox say, here's who we're offering, and for this kind of money, this is it. Take it or leave it. Otherwise, I think the deal would have been done already. So I'm not as hopeful as you are that you get somebody back. I think it's salary relief, and I don't think it'll be a baseball deal. If you get somebody who eventually is good, hooray for our team. But I'm more skeptical than you are hopeful.
Yeah, I've heard rumblings about one of their former top prospects who's faded, by the name of Blaze Jordan, who was drafted, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, and is just, again, another first baseman, corner, infield guy, and more of an on-base power prospect than anything else. But if you're the Cardinals, man, you got to try to find some sort of match where a team's willing to deal with you. I mean, this is a future Hall of Fame third baseman, and you're telling me you can't bring any tangible piece back in return? To me, and you're probably right. The fact that nothing's happened so far means that it's unlikely something does go down, but maybe the Red Sox, seeing how competitive the AL East is, and if the Bregman market moves away from them, which means maybe Chicago, it looks like Houston's not going to be dealing with Bregman. Maybe he's a Chicago Cub. And if the Red Sox are desperate to get Devers off of third base, maybe that's something that they're interested in moving a number of corner, infield / outfield, either big leaguers or prospects that they have in that organization. Yeah, it's wishful thinking on my part, Ramber, but man, if I'm the Cardinals, to at least show your fan base, hey, we tried something, a trade that only involves money and a future Hall of Famer going elsewhere. Golly, that's a tough sell.
What in recent memory has told you the Cardinals prioritize fans' interest?
Yeah, very little. But they've
can I correct you? 0. and they made the problem with the Cardinals the last 5, 6, 7 years is they make too many declarations. And you've heard me talk about that before. It drives me crazy. They don't play close enough to the vest. So now that you've told everybody in the world, we got to move this money. Well, why would you come back and say, hey, I take this great player so we can pay a bunch of money to a guy who's at the tail end of his career? I don't like the Cardinals' position here.
And the fact that they made that declaration about Arenado almost right out of the box. And Rammer, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've heard anything from Nolan. Nolan hasn't publicly said, trade me. He has said, I'm not going to the Astros.
Well,
yeah, right. But he didn't come out and say, you better trade me or else, right? And we've seen players do that before. He hasn't used the media.
No, he wanted to stay.
Right. So the fact that the Cardinals felt it necessary for themselves to, like you said, show their hand. It's like going to the poker table and showing everybody you've got 7-2 offsuit. They've got nothing. And yet they decided to tell everyone that here's our position. We don't have a lot of leverage, but now we're going to have less because we're going to telegraph our move.
Yeah, I still, and I know I'll never end up talking to him person to person, but I'm still really curious why I thought the Houston deal made great sense. But it didn't to Nolan and his people. I'm sure it had to do with money and contracts and things, but that's water under the bridge. It's over. It's done. Move forward, whatever forward means. And you didn't say it directly, but intimated we could go into the season with Nolan at third base with the idea of trying to move him by the All-Star or by the trade deadline.
Right. That would certainly be a possibility as well. And I don't know. You tell me, do you think that if they wait for the break, does that increase the probability of them getting a tangible piece in return?
Maybe, especially if somebody's looking at him because they've had an injury, or the person they're playing at third base, or a bat in the middle of the order has really failed miserably, but they feel like they're in contention. There's too many variables to say for sure, but perhaps. But more likely, you'd get prospects, move money and get prospects, which is what they said they wanted to do with him from the beginning.
So Arenado off the team opens up third base. But again, it opens also up a potential domino effect, Rammer, that impacts a lot of positions on this team. And obviously it starts with third base, and Nolan Gorman, I think they've said, would be the guy to reap that benefit the most. But there are guys like Thomas Saggese that factors in maybe at third base. And then you talk about second base. And if that involves Brendan Donovan, then that impacts the outfield as well.
Well, I'm taking a hard turn on Brendan Donovan, who is an absolute baller. And I think that it's time, and I'm probably the number one guy that loves players that play every day, but at a different position every day. Because of the Cardinals' circumstances, I think the Cardinals should move away from that label for Brendan Donovan. I believe the Cardinals, and as every team does, need strength up the middle. We'll get to catching in a little bit. You don't have a strength there. We'll get to center field in a little bit. You have defensive strength there, even defensive depth there, but you don't have offense there. So you better lock down the keystone. You better lock down Wynn and Donovan. And I think if you move multiple guys in at second base, you're really hurting your opportunity to be successful. I really believe in that strength up the middle. So I'm off the Donovan super utility guy, not because he can't do it. He's great at it. I want him to play every day, and I want our double play combination to be good and to be the same guys every day. And that's why the drum I'm going to beat starting right now on this show, until something dramatic changes my mind, it's got to be Wynn Donovan up the middle. So my discussion with other domino effects will come from that position, so that that's where I'm from. I don't know anybody else that has said that. It probably means I'm wrong. And so I'm wrong all the time. I can live with that. So with that said, I think Thomas Saggese is the guy who becomes the super utility guy, in particular on the infield. And I think that what I don't know is, can he play a major league capable third base? In case Gorman still doesn't hit, or doesn't hit left-handers, is Saggese a reasonable option as a platoon guy at third? I have no idea, Brendan. I haven't seen him play any third base. I don't know. And if anybody else in the media says they do know, I'm very skeptical.
Now, would you agree, Rammer, that to get Donovan locked in at second base, Arenado needs to be gone to free up Gorman to move to third?
No.
Because otherwise,
Gorman can't hit. Why would you make a spot for a guy who can't hit?
But I imagine they're going to give him a chance to hit. I don't think he's going to be relegated to AAA, right? I mean, he's going to be given a chance to play every day right now.
What's he going to do in the spring?
Hopefully he hits.
Okay, that's hopeful. See, I can see how this show is going to go for the season. You're the sunshine lollipops guy. I'm the gray clouds. It might be acid rain coming. Do we still have acid rain, or do the environmentalists let that go? Okay, that's a political.
I haven't heard about acid rain in a while.
That's what I'm saying. It used to be it was going to be the end of the world. Anyway, so I think that can Gorman win a job? Yeah, but I don't know why we would hand him a job going into the spring. I think that's what I talked about from the very beginning of the show. It's got to be meritocracy. And if Arenado's here, what happens to Gorman? I don't know. Who are you going to take out of the lineup? How are you going to take Brendan Donovan out of the lineup and put a 160 hitter in, it doesn't make any sense to me.
But it just to my point on that on third base is whether it's Gorman or anybody else, there tends to be a logjam at second base if Arenado's there. If it's not Gorman, then maybe it's Sajaci. I'm just saying,
Stop. You go into spring training saying, yeah, Sajaci, you got the job. See, this is where you and I are going to be at loggerheads. I don't want Donovan moving all around because we don't have a second baseman and we don't have strength up the middle. So I'm repeating myself. So I'll follow your lead.
Well, here's the thing. I agree with you. Brendan Donovan's your best second baseman. I'm talking about what the Cardinals do. I'm not, at the moment, I'm not saying
Cardinals are going to screw this up completely.
They always screw it up.
You're going to have guys all over the place, but how do you predict what they're going to do? I'm just telling you what I would do.
And I would do exactly what you're doing right now. Brendan Donovan is one of, if Arenado's gone, I think we can make an argument Donovan's your best player all around. Bat, defense.
Yeah.
And I think whether it's second base, left field, or anywhere else, I think the most important thing with Donovan, Rammer, is that he gets 600 plate appearances.
He's got to play every day.
This notion that he's super utility and, well, here's a couple of days where he's not going to play. No, Donovan plays every day.
100%.
Donovan leads off every day, and lock that in.
Like this. Yeah. We
lock
agree.
that in.
That's where we agree. So let's don't talk about the third base. Switch it to the outfield. Well, what about playing him in the outfield? Well, what position? Is Nootbaar not going to play? Is Walker not going to play? Who's going to play center field? So you see all those things play into it. To me, I'm going to separate those things out if I were running it. I've got to figure out my outfield. And is Jordan Walker going to earn right field? I don't know. Is he?
No.
Nootbaar will start as your left fielder. The question for Nootbaar is, can he stay healthy? If he can't stay healthy, you've got real problems. And I don't know who's going to win the center field job. Now, I've seen some projections that it won't be Ciani. They're going to go to the other guy. And so, but Ciani's a year older. He was not great offensively, picked it up a little bit late. I don't know who's going to win that job. See, that's where competition has to come in for me. But I don't know who's going to win it. Do you?
I don't, and that'll be perfect. We're going to talk about who needs a big spring training as sort of a springboard to the season, and I've got thoughts on that on the center field job coming up here in just a little bit. But yes, that's another potential domino, and your point is spot on. Donovan at second gives the outfield room to breathe a little bit, and hopefully gives some guys the chance to play every day that deserve it. And if that means Gorman is squeezed out, then there's the meritocracy you were talking about, Rammer. Right. Yeah, if Gorman's hitting 160, no, he can't be playing. I think he'll hit better than that. I think there's a chance the Gorman we saw not last year but 2 years ago resurfaces. And
or even last May for 3 weeks, whatever it was, he was dominant.
Yes, he was.
He went off.
If May 2024 Gorman shows up, holy cow. And if that guy shows up for a whole season, MVP. But the odds of that happening, probably not great. We'll discuss that coming up. It's the Redbird Report, our inaugural show. It's powered by Rawlings, located right across the street from us, right across the hallway from us here at Westport Plaza. Brendan Wiese, Bob Ramsey, the Big 550 KTRS, and our KTRS digital platforms. We're back after this.
And now back to the Redbird Report with Brendan Wiese and Bob Ramsey on the Big 550, powered by Rawlings and the Rawlings Experience.
We continue on the Redbird Report on the Big 550 KTRS or KTRS digital platforms. Brendan Wiese, Bob Ramsey with you as we talk Cardinal Baseball, just a few days away from spring training. And Rammer, the next thing we wanted to get to, and it happened on the FM dial over on 101 earlier in the week. Jim Edmonds appeared, and long interview, long talk with some of our pals over there, Martin Kilcoyne and Tim McKernan and the fellas, talking about all things Cardinals baseball, and Jimmy Ballgame making some waves. Just curious what your thoughts on what you heard from Edmonds, and if it changes anything a lot of us have probably already been thinking about anyway.
Well, I'm not sure where you want to go with that. It's a pretty broad topic. As fans, we really get used to our announcers. I think just as many people who loved Edmonds on the air, like I did, his analysis was brilliant. One of the smartest baseball minds I've heard. Just as many people didn't care for it. And I think what they didn't care about was when Jim would get a little bit off topic. So his great stuff, in my view, was really great. And the rest of the stuff, they could get off into some silliness. And, you do all, baseball is a long season. It's hard to really be grinding and on top of your game every single day in a situation like being up in the booth. I think when Dan McLaughlin left, I think it hadn't been the same for Jim. Since then, I think they had a real connection. That's not a shot at Chip Carey, who's a great broadcaster and a great guy, but I think the chemistry was a little bit different. And I think around that same time, inner office stuff changed. Things that had always been kind of button-down collars, stiff shirt, has gotten even stiffer around the ball club, and kind of a corporate feel instead of we're guys hanging around the clubhouse. It appears, I'm not down there, I can't say that for a fact, but that's sort of what Jimmy was intimating, I think, in the interview, and that changes. It becomes less fun, and I think a lot of those things. I think a lot of those things came together, and his unhappiness and the club, and I think that's just kind of how things go. I think most Americans at one time or another in their workplace have seen cultures change and not liked it as much. And I think when we think about baseball as being separate, it's still a workplace. And sometimes everything's fit and everybody's happy and hunky-dory. And then sometimes things change and cultures and companies go different directions. Most of us have been through that at one time or another. So I don't know if there's a good guy or a bad guy here. I think things just change. But I do want to say emphatically, when Jim was on point on the air and breaking down baseball stuff, I've never heard anybody better.
He was excellent in those regards. I think the broadcasting side of it, I don't know if it's going to be a good or a bad thing for FanDuel Sports Midwest. What caught my ear the most is when he talks about maybe not feeling welcome around the team. And like you said, if the culture's changing, and it's one thing if the culture changes, Ramber, for the better, and this team's won back-to-back World Series, and the way we did things before, it's not how we do things anymore. And here's the reason why. Look at all the banners. Look at the championships. This is what we do. Obviously, that's not happened for the Cardinals. And when you ostracize guys like Jim Edmonds, if that's happening, and it's pretty certainly on record that guys like Chris Carpenter were made to feel unwelcome as he was essentially said his services weren't needed anymore inside the organization. When someone like Matt Holliday, agrees to be a coach, and then a week before spring training, it's like, I don't think I'm going to do this. It's, once is a rare occurrence. When it happens 2, 3, 4 times, Rammer, it starts to become a trend. And when you sort of, stiff arm guys that have been all-time great Cardinals and have been around the team when the ball club has been at its best, and you make those guys feel like their input is no longer needed, I think it's a tough look for an organization that prides itself on its history. There's the Yankees, And then there's the Cardinals.
No, I got to disagree with you, Brendan. The Cardinals don't pride themselves on that. We do. Fans do. Cardinals are a corporate machine. And they'll tell you, oh, yeah, look at our champion. But they've turned their back on that. And if they're successful and they're going to go the corporate route and and dive into the analytics route, it's their company. It's their ball club. Do whatever you want. But the embracing the history stuff, that's gone. And I hope they're successful with the new way. And look, I get it. You're talking about millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars at stake every year. And you want to be buttoned up, and you believe your slavish devotion to analytics is key to doing that. Okay, it's your company. You go for it, but the warmth of what used to be Cardinal baseball is gone. And what are the, so I don't know. I don't want to belabor it. I love the Cardinals, and I still very much enjoy the little bit of communication I have with the people I still know in the front office. It's not very much, but I like those people. They're all good. It's like I said, it's more of a definitive culture change that win or lose, they'll live with. And if they win, they'll say, see, I told you. And if they win, Cardinal fans won't care. If the Red Jacket guys aren't welcome to go screw around in the clubhouse and go get a free meal, Cardinal fans won't care. We won. But if they lose, then the Cardinal fans will let them know at the box office.
Yeah. Well, we'll have time along the way to talk about if what the Cardinal way is now, and it doesn't appear like it exists in the form
it doesn't exist.
that it once did. Yeah, it's non-existent at the moment. Couple more things I want to get to. One more before we go to break, and I alluded to it earlier, Rammer. Guys that we want to see take steps in spring training that we think could be a springboard to success in the regular season, and almost like they need it in spring training. I've got two guys, one position player, one pitcher, and I'll start with Victor Scott. I think Victor Scott needs to have a good spring training. I think we need to see that bat that we've seen at AAA before. And I think we saw at times at spring training last year because it helped him make the opening day roster, if I'm not mistaken. And it doesn't have to, the guy's not going to be a 30 home run guy, but if he can get on base, run a little bit, and hit around 280, 290, utilize some of that speed that he has.
If he hits 280, 290, he's going to steal 60, 70 bases and be an all-star. So that's a winner.
And maybe that's lofty expectations on my part. And I think for guys like that, he needs to discover who he is. I don't think he's a 20, 25 home run guy. So if he can be a 10 home run guy, run a bunch, get a bunch of doubles and triples, play outstanding defense like we think he can, I think his upside is superior to that of Michael Ciani. Ciani had like a 3-month sample size last year of really good metric defense. The analytics said Ciani was terrific, but the pedigree for me is just not there. He hasn't done it enough in the minor leagues. I don't think he's going to be able to hit at the major league level. If you want a 210, 220 hitter with stellar defense, maybe it's Ciani and maybe he hits 9th for you. But I love the upside of Scott so much more.
Though,
like he's got to hit at spring for that to materialize.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Ciani was a higher draft pick than Victor Scott.
Was it the Reds? Reds got him?
Well, when the Reds picked him, anyway, I'm not saying I like him over Scott. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I think that he was a good guy for the Cardinals to get in a deal. He was a 4th round pick. Scott was a 5th round pick. Ciani, though, is a little bit older. 1 year older. Is the bloom off the rose because of that 1 year? Maybe. It could be. I don't know if either one of them can hit in the big leagues.
Well,
I think a more realistic projection for Scott would be, I'm not worried about average as much, which is something I rarely say, but if he can get a 350 on base percentage, draw walks, and hit the ball the other way, slap it on when you have shifts, go the other way with it. I hope he doesn't hit one home run. I don't want any home runs. I want this guy on base stealing bases. That's what I want. That's why I was so concerned a year ago, and I think it was borne out when Mason Wynn said, I want to hit 20 home runs. No. Forget the home runs. Get on base. Steal. But as he was getting on base in the first half of the season, going to Mason Wynn, the Cardinals showed they don't care about stolen bases. They want power. So I think you're thinking like the Cardinals. They want Mason Wynn to hit 20, 25 home runs. They want Scott or Ciani to hit 10, 15, 18 home runs. I don't have interest in that. So that's where we'll diverge from the Cardinals, and maybe you and I will diverge as well as we move forward talking about these young guys.
His contact numbers are pretty good. Didn't hit it for a great average really anywhere last year, but did in 2023, hit over 320 at Springfield. Again, strikeout's not a problem. Does walk a fair amount. I'm with you. If it's not as many home runs, but more steals, I'll take it. And that's an exciting player that the Cardinals Mason Wynn's kind of that guy, the guy that brings speed and excitement. And I think it can be a difference maker in center field.
It did say at the Cardinal warm-up that he wanted to run more. And that was music to my ears. But will the Cardinals let him? I don't know. And, the Cardinals want that danger in the 2-hole that they stole from Tony. But to me, you don't have the luxury of that in this lineup. You don't have enough good hitters. To me, if Wynn gets his on-base percentage up, and he's got to go up a lot, it really fell in the last 2 months of the year. If he gets that on-base percentage up, it's got to be Wynn, Donovan 1-2 in the batting order.
I take Donovan Wynn. I take either way. I don't
either way. Yeah, I would agree. But
I'll go either way.
If you have Wynn hitting 2, he's not going to run as much. You're not going to run as much and get Contreras walked.
And it would also, for me, and we may differ on this, depending on who you want to go 3-4. If you've got right-hander, 3-4, I think I would go Wynn, Donovan. If you think you've got a lefty hitting third or fourth, like
Burleson
hitting in the middle, then maybe I've got Brendan first and Mason second. But yeah, for me, it would depend on, because I love going lefty righty.
Me too.
On what that middle of the order.
Just off the top of my head, if we were going to play tomorrow, okay, because we don't know what March is going to hold for us, right? We're going to play tomorrow. I'm going Wynn, Donovan, Contreras, Burleson, Arenado, and or maybe even, probably Arenado. But I'm a big Ivan Herrera fan. We didn't get into the catching thing today, but Herrera's got to be in there, and then Nootbaar, and then on down the lineup.
Well, Rammer, and we'll maybe look at pitching next week. Give me a position player that you want to see have a big spring. You feel needs to have a big spring as a springboard to the regular season.
The one guy that really hit last year, and nobody else did, really hit, was Ivan Herrera. I want him to continue to do that so the Cardinals can't bury him. The Cardinals want to bury him because they don't love the way he throws. Hey, if I've got a great team and I can carry a 216 hitting Yadier Molina, absolutely, every day. But nobody thinks Pages or Herrera or anybody else in the system is close to Yadi. So I put that out of my mind. Nobody thinks the Cardinals are going to win the World Series this year. So we don't have to trade Ted Simmons for Darryl Porter for defense. Put Herrera back there and play him and let him rake.
In 259 plate appearances last year, Herrera was a 301 hitter, OPS plus of 124. And you've been singing his praises, and it doesn't even take digging deeper on Herrera. Like, the guy just hits, and the hit tool is there. I don't know ultimately how much he can hit, but if he's 280 and above and an OPS plus of 110 or above, That's a valuable asset for you. If you've got a catcher that can hit, and as long as obviously he can't be Swiss cheese and a limp noodle for a throwing arm back there, but if he's suitable back there, passable defensively, Rammer, and he hits anywhere close to how he hit last year for 400 to 450 plate appearances, you got to run him out there. He's got to be high.
You got a team that can't hit. You got to put him in the lineup somewhere.
Yep.
And does that mean Jordan Walker goes back to AAA, Burleson plays right, and Herrera DHs? I don't know, because there are all these different moving pieces and variables. You got one guy, two, counting Contreras, that can absolutely rake. And we've already talked about how we love Donovan. So there's three guys. You got to play the bats. You got to.
Right. Herrera is a bat. And like I said, you've really turned me on to what he can do. Guy's almost a 2-win player last year. And he, again, 250 plate appearances. Let's extrapolate that data.
Yeah. Now, if in March, I also believe, you'll hear me say this for the next 7 weeks, never fall in love in March or September.
Yes, sir.
In or out of love. But if he hits 116, he's got to go back to AAA. Okay, I get that. I'm just saying, based on what we saw, if we were going to play tomorrow, you got to play the bats.
Like Donovan, for instance, he hits 150 in the spring, Rammer.
He's still playing.
Yeah. I don't care. The problem is there's a lot of guys on this team right now that we're going to have to care what they do in spring, because there's no certainty.
Exactly right.
Donovan, Mason Wynn, Arenado if he's here.
Probably Nootbaar. Health is the Nootbaar thing.
Yeah. That would be it. Those are the guys I don't care about spring. Too many other guys we're going to have to worry about. Hey, let's take our final break. It's our Redbird Report debut edition for 2025. Brendan Wiese, Bob Ramsey. A quick little peek at the Central Division as things are starting to unfold a little bit before spring training starts here on the Big 550 KTRS and our KTRS digital platforms.
You're listening to the Redbird Report on the Big 550. Powered by Rawlings and the Rawlings Experience.
All right, we've got about 5 minutes to play with here as we tie a bow around our debut Redbird Report here on the Big 550 KTRS. Brendan Wiese, Bob Ramsey, and Rammer, as we get set to raise the curtain on spring, we look around at the Central Division. You look over the last 10, 15 years, it's not often where we say the Cardinals aren't the front runner to start and really aren't even close to being the front runner. That doesn't mean things can't change when we start playing games for real. But right now, if you were to say just like quick instinct, who's your division favorite in the Central as we sit here on February the 6th?
There isn't one. Nobody from the division is going to make the playoffs. They're going to change the rules.
If
they're
only,
going to change
right?
the rules. The Eastern and Western divisions are so far superior, at least at the top of their divisions. It's not even funny. I don't know. I think every team is terrible. I was looking, I knew we were going to do the show today. I'm looking in there, I'm going, well, that's not very good. And then you go to the next team. Well, that's not very good. And then you go to the next team. Well, that's not very good. So I guess I'll go Milwaukee just because they're the champs until somebody takes it away. A lot of people are trying to say, oh, look at the Reds. And man, I don't see the Reds. The team that's going to jump up and bite some people right in the butt is Pittsburgh.
Yes.
They've got a couple of pitchers at the top of the order you do not want to face in a weekend series, brother.
And it's, for me, and that's why,
I don't think they're going to win, by the way. I just think you don't want to face them. And the rest of the division, you go, I don't care if we play them this weekend.
And I don't think we can, they're not my favorite. And I'm with you. It's probably, for me, it's probably the Cubs. And I like their rotation, and it feels like they're willing to spend money. As we record this, they don't have Bregman yet, but things are maybe trending in that direction.
That could push them up. Yeah.
Yeah. But you said that about the Pirates. Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, Mitch Keller at the top of that rotation, and you sprinkle in a couple of their other pieces, and I think Bednar's still there at the back end of their bullpen. Man, they can pitch a little bit. And if Brian Reynolds ever showed up as that guy. Remember I think it was Carlson's rookie year, maybe it was the pandemic year where Reynolds really burst onto the scene. If Reynolds can be like a legit all-star, I think they might actually have enough pieces position player-wise. They need a lot of things to fall into place, and obviously they need all those pitchers to stay healthy, which might be asking a lot. But man, Pittsburgh's got some potential upside with those arms to be a force in this division, and maybe, like you said, sneak up and bite people. And if they make the playoffs, Rammer, when they can run Skeens, Jones, and Keller out there in a quick series, man, look out.
And so I don't really have a favorite. Like I say, until somebody beats Milwaukee, I guess I'll give them the nod. I mean, we're still just playing catch at this point. But what it does for me now, we're gonna have to switch sides on the screen here. It tells me that if the Cardinals play right and catch some breaks, they can be right there with all the rest of them, because there is no clear-cut favorite to me.
And that's the thing. The Cardinals have, I think, they need to hit their, what would we say, 90th percentile for a lot of these guys. A lot of guys on the Cardinals need to have career years this year, and that is going to be asking a lot. But there is potential for the Cardinals to surprise. Let's just and the fact they play in the Central is going to help them a lot. If they were in the West, we could already be talking about 2026.
Forget it. We'll try and win the Pacific Coast League. And I think a real key here is maybe in our next show we can break down rotations. Mm-hmm. And I talked about, will the Cardinals play contracts, or will they play guys who earn it in the spring? And I think the rotation, as much as any other spot on this club, will tell us, well, Michaelis and Matz are going to be our guys. You're not going to give McGreevy a shot. That'll tell us a lot about this front office. And are they blowing smoke, or are they really trying to make a youth movement? Matz and Michaelis, contracts, but they're old. Young arms, clearly better. Who are you going to play? This will tell us, the starting rotation will tell us more about the front office than anything else.
Rammer, this was fun. Baseball is right around the corner, and I can't wait to talk about it throughout spring here on the Redbird Report. It's powered by Rawlings on the Big 550 KTRS or KTRS digital platforms. Rammer, good luck to those Billikens this weekend. St. Joe's.
Maybe the most talented team in the league that is struggling, and they'll be ready. It'll be a hard game.
Rammer, enjoy it, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you, buddy.
Bob Ramsey, I'm Brendan Wiese, the Redbird Report on the Big 550.